Making movies and making YouTube videos, those are two very different things, right? Hang on, is that a retention hack? Is this from The Matrix? They're mocking Mattel here. Cinematic content could never work on YouTube. That's what we've been telling ourselves. Like, there's no way we would have waded through 50 minutes of Wes Anderson's Asteroid City to get to the film's main trigger, and as much as Avatar is a sight to behold, not much dialogue doesn't bode well for attention. On the other hand, I first went to watch Barbie with a clear apprehension of what I was about to take in. Naturally then, I didn't see it coming.
Doesn't seem to matter.
From start to finish, I loved the "let's not take this too seriously" approach, the self-irony that both Mattel and Barbie were ready to put up with, the fact that no character is even remotely the perfect version of themselves, and of course,
I'm just kidding. Anywhere else I'd be.
But then I watched Barbie a second time, and that's when I realized Barbie isn't just a good film. Barbie could probably be a great YouTube video. Breaking cinematic stereotypes, featuring standout details which would make it at home on short-form content platforms, the film never needed those. And yet, it's almost like Greta Gerwig and her team looked down on YouTube, borrowed a few key elements known for good retention and average view durations, and then thought, right, let's show them how it's done. So, how does Barbie think we should start any YouTube video in a way viewers won't even think about clicking off? And why is an undecisive Allan the best way for your viewers to relate to your content? Yep, I've just wasted 10 seconds of your time, and you probably didn't enjoy that. Well, that's exactly why a good video should deliver on the reason viewers clicked on it as quickly as possible. But what if you want to keep the good stuff for later, while making sure they're not even thinking about clicking off? From the very first moments of Barbie, you will be asking yourself quite a lot of questions. But the film doesn't want to answer those just yet. Instead, it first wants to lay down the context of Barbie, so the viewers who aren't as acquainted with the storyline can get on board. Think of it as going through the rules of a board game. Well, that's really boring. So, while the film gets on with the business of contextualizing the whole storyline, it makes sure that you're still entertained. The result is this opening sequence.
Since the first little girl ever existed, there have been dolls. But the dolls were always and forever baby dolls. This continued until...
It throws you around with a typical scenery, exaggerations, making enough sense for everyone to get the point of Barbie, while entertaining those who already know the whole story. And by the time you see the first splashes of pink, you've settled into the film. Having said that, if Barbie was a YouTube video, viewers wouldn't want to stay if they couldn't relate to the content.
No one else has ever asked me about actually is there are a number of comic book logos at one point.
I steal from every single movie ever made.
I don't mind terribly building up a collection of films that are linked together.
Space Odyssey and Barbie really don't have much in common. And yet, this hasn't stopped the opening sequence from ending as a tribute to one of the greatest cinematic transitions of all time. In fact, this sequence very much mimics the opening scene of Stanley Kubrick's work. But why? Well, much like laughing at the same memory with your friends, references creates a link between the film and the audience who understands the intent. The film now reaches a more personal aspect of yourself, and in return, you trust it a little more. In fact, this technique is so effective, the more references are constantly being brought in. So how confident are you that whatever you want to tell the audience, they'll be interested in listening? I mean, I'm not. And by the looks of it...
Please welcome to the stage
the only Dame Helen Mirren.
Neither was Helen Mirren. You see, she was tasked with narrating Barbie's idyllic morning routine, but some parts of that narration weren't covered by her voice at all, but rather the music playing in the background.
And here is one of those Barbies now, living her best day every day.
When I wake up in my own pink world, I get up out of bed and wave to my homegirls. Hey Barbie, hey, she's so cool, all dolled up, just playing chess by the pool.
Now, of course, this is a way of bringing audio and visual together in a way that feels more authentic. Think of it as adding wind sound effects to the footage of a forest. It makes it feel like it was meant to be. But mostly, it's a change of voice, it's a change of tone, it prevents the audience from getting bored. And pushing it even further, the music quickly becomes so integrated to Barbie's morning routine that it starts having brief interactions with Barbie.
What you wearing? Dress or suit? Either way, that power looks so good on you.
And Helen Mirren herself.
You use your imagination.
Hey, I was still singing.
And yet, it's blended in ever so seamlessly, you might not have even noticed. So, while it doesn't have to be as subtle as going from a British accent to a kitsch American singing voice, long parts of potentially not very interesting and quite dreary dialogues are made so much more interesting with sneaky audio and visual changes. Don't, however, do it the Mission Impossible way. Anyway, so in Barbie Land you've got Barbies.
Hi Barbie.
Quite a lot of them. And Kens.
Shredding waves is much more dangerous than people realize.
Just Kens. Now, what you really want at this point is something or someone squeezed right in between these two extremes who actually secretly turns out to have the answer to the whole plot. That way, you're layering a clearer perspective on the whole plot of the film, but also helping the audience figure out what's right before the film even gets there. Allan, however, isn't quite that. Allan is undecisive, and his personality is never further explored. And that's great, because it introduces an undetermined element to the film. It isn't an element that's forced on you, but rather one which you can speculate about. Perhaps Allan would have preferred penguins to horses. Perhaps he represents our Greta Thunberg of our modern society. Perhaps it'll turn out into something unexpected throughout the movie. Adding an undetermined element to your video will subconsciously encourage your audience to engage with it. For instance, imagine you're editing a talking head video with a client rambling on about better ways to spend your days at work, and you're tasked with representing someone at their computer. Now you can either pick some B-roll of the man working at his computer, specifically a dark-skinned, average-height man wearing a white shirt complemented with his black tie, looking somewhat engaged but also stressed, relaxed, pissed, or you create an animation of someone working at their computer. Therefore, you're not forcing your audience into relating to that person, and instead they'll most likely start to engage with it. This might be personal, but I consider laughter the most important feeling you can have. And so while human comedy only suits so many videos, it is something I try to more or less subtly implement to every video I edit. And Barbie, well, that made the most of one of my favourite kinds of humour. Let's not take it too seriously. Sure, Ken is very committed to beaching, and yes, horses may at some point or another have played a very important role in patriarchy. Let's not try to explain how cars never got the slightest scrape in any of the chasing scenes, and surely Mattel is a bit more diplomatic than what the film makes of them. However, none of this would have worked if it wasn't for that first sequence. The film starts with young girls playing dolls by themselves in a desertic scenery. Then comes along an unreasonably sized Barbie doll backed up by the Space Odyssey theme song. One of the smashed dolls goes flying into the air, leading to the Space Odyssey transition we talked about earlier. Kind of peculiar. But having watched this, I'm now open to all the weird and inexplicable things that then follow. And that's my last point. Go all in. Having built up the dedication to put aside time and energy into creating your video, the last thing you want is for your viewers to think, hold on, I've already seen this somewhere. Because while Barbie is a traditional film you put aside hours to go and watch, it's only a matter of seconds before viewers click off from your video as it may be too generic and lacking personality. Good luck.